Displacement. Let's talk about that. In Blender, when it comes to cycles or EV, you actually have one type of displacement. But in Octane, you have two types of displacement: image texture and noise displacement. And there are like two different workflows to use them. What do I mean by that? It's pretty simple. If we come over here to our universal shader, or like any shader that gives you the displacement option, you could just click on it and you'll get texture displacement, vertex displacement, vertex displacement mixers. So you could add in like multiple displacements and just turn it into one, and displacement switcher, which is pretty self-explanatory what it's going to be doing. So we're going to be starting off with texture displacement. Now, if we come over here, we could add in the texture that we want. And obviously, the best way is to add in like an image texture over here. Then we have the mid levels, the level of detail. Is it 1080? Is it 2K? Is it 4K, 8K, 16K? You're going to be needing NASA's computer for that. And then we have the height, which is basically going to be determining how much it's going to be affecting on your object. Then these are like the most unique things that I have not seen in cycles yet. So let me just load in a previous texture over here. I'm going to be adding in an RGB image that we just used already. So we got a texture loaded up over here. So you might not be able to see anything yet. But as soon as I put it to 4K, because I know the texture is 4K, and I start to increase it, boom, look at that. And dude, the most crazy part about this is if I select it and go into edit mode, that's the only mesh count that we're using right now. Because if this was cycles, you would have had to add like multiple subdivisions to this. And coming towards these things, let me just expand this one over here. Displacement direction and filter type. Now coming towards the displacement direction. Flow to geometry normal. Now this will only affect the geometry according to the normals. I don't personally use it, but someone might need it someday. Flow vertex normal, that's the way to go for me. And there's actually a third option over here. Flow smooth normals. I did nothing for this texture. Filter type, this is the game changing thing. So let's say if we zoom in a bit, the texture looks good from far away, but all of these rough edges, we don't want that. So we'll just put the filter type from none to Gaussian, and boom, look at that. It just cleaned it up instantly. No more artifacts. I mean, obviously, you cannot go like super close because you're going to be needing a higher resolution texture. But hey, I mean, even for like mid shots, like close to this, you're pretty much good to go. So that's like texture displacement for you. Alrighty, so that's the power of texture displacement, and we're going to be circling back to texture displacement in a while. For now, I'll just disconnect it, and we're going to be moving towards the next thing that Octane has to offer, which is vertex displays. So let's have a look at the node first. So obviously, we first of all have the compatibility version, then we have the texture, height, mid-level, the map type, the vector space, the input axis, outer bump, and subdivision levels. So let's add in a noise for our sake. Let's say we'll add in cinema 4D noise for this one. And if I control shift click it, if you have the Blender Octane Node Wrangler enabled, this will increase your workflow from here to here. So let me just open up the UV transform and the projection, and let me just scale it down a bit and use 4D noise. Alrighty guys, so we got our noise setup. Now let's plug it in towards the vertex displays. Okay, as soon as we plug it in, it starts to do something, which isn't pretty good yet, because obviously we'll have to make it good. So this is our height, like how much we want it to affect. The mid levels, how much it should just cramp back in. And now coming towards the map type. So if we click on vector, we'll get a different result as compared to height. So I always keep it on height because it gives the best results possible. Then vector space, do we want it to affect the object or the tangent? So we're going to be exploring this further down the line when we're going to be doing the practical examples. And then the input axis. So if you have like a texture which is not working on x plus y plus z plus, you could always just shift it from over here. Then we have auto bump map. So this is going to determine like what is the size of our noise and how it's going to be affecting it. See, if I turn that off, we lose that detail. But if I just turn it on, we get that detail back. Now coming towards the subdivision level. Now this is going to be adding fixed subdivisions to our mesh. Let's say if I want a subdivision level of 2, boom, it gave us a completely different result. And you could just decrease the height to get a texture like this. And obviously this is infinite resolution. You could crank it up as much as you want or squeeze it down for like micro details. Now let's say you want to use C4D noise with texture displacement. What would happen if we do it? I'll just plug it back in, take our C4D noise, and if I plug it in, nothing happens. Why? Because you will have to add another node in the middle. And what's that node? The baking texture. Now, to my understanding, what the baking texture does is it takes all of your noises and bakes them in real time and just taking the output and just plugging it in. So I'll put this to, let's say, 4K resolution, 4096, 4096. And if you try to move this, it won't work anymore. Why? Because in the baking texture, it has its own controls. Yep, just like that. Oh, we're getting some artifacts over here. Gamma should be at 1. HDR, and we could also increase the pixel size if we have to. Let's say instead of 32, it should be 64. Okay, this looks good, but I want to try another noise. How simple is that? Just press Control, come over here towards the noise type, and spin your spin your scroller. Look at that. Totally wild. It's updating the shader. Boom. And let's say if I take this, go to unwrap, vertical projection. Nice. So yeah, there are like endless possibilities that you can do with displacement alone. So what was the next thing that we had to cover? I'll just disconnect this, click on the displacement. We have the vertex displacement mixer. So what you could do is take your vertex displace, plug this one in, and let's say if I duplicate this and duplicate this setup and take another noise over here, and if I plug it in towards the second displacement, and I don't want the one displacement one to affect it that much, I'll just decrease it. You know what? Let me just find another displacement. Okay, FBM will do for the second displacement. Now if we plug it into our vector displacement and put this to 1, you see we have two different displacements working at the same time. And could we do the same for texture displacement? Yes, we can. So I'll just delete this node. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our baking texture node and our RGB node and we're going to be combining them together. But we don't have to combine them after the baking texture. We need to do that before that. What do I mean by that? Let me explain. Let me add in a mixed texture node. I'll put the image texture on top and this is going to be our secondary, and I'll plug it in towards the baking texture, and our texture displacement is going to be going into the displacement. So we got both of the textures working at the same time. How do we know? Well, if I take the slider and put it to 0, now only the image texture is showing. And if I put it to 1, the second texture is working. And with this slider alone, the amount, we could mix and match how much we want, or even if you want, you could just add in like a grayscale mask over here, or even a noise pattern just to differentiate, okay, this part should work like this and this part should work like this. So let's do a quick recap. What did we learn in this chapter? In this chapter, we actually explored the displacement and how you could use the displacement nodes over here. And now in the next chapter, we're going to be exploring volumes. So yeah, be ready for that.